What is going on, Jets fans? Welcome back to Jets Media. My name is Richie, and in today's video, I'm giving you my 53-man roster prediction, but more like if I was Joe Douglas, what would I do? Okay, what would I do if I was Joe Douglas? Because this is going to be a very tough roster for Joe Douglas to figure out of who makes the 53-man roster. We've had a lot of players show out in training camp and in the preseason. It's going to be very, very interesting. So, folks, let me know your 53-man roster prediction in the comments right now. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. The NFL season is right around the corner. Training camp is over. Preseason is over. You know what's up next? The regular season, folks. So hit the subscribe button if you're new to Jets Media, and let's get straight into business. Let's not waste any more time. So starting off with the quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers and Tyrod Taylor, the two quarterbacks that make the roster. Adrian Martinez, he played well in the preseason, but he did not do enough to make the roster. Let's be honest with ourselves. I hope that he's our practice squad quarterback. And then Andrew Peasley, don't really expect him to be on the Jets practice squad. He did not show enough for me personally. And then you have Jordan Travis, who will probably just be redshirted, get on the IR for the season, not take up a roster spot, but the Jets can stash him, and hopefully he can be healthy for next offseason's training camp and preseason, and Jordan Travis can be that young guy that we develop for the long term. So that's really not a big news, right? Not a big prediction. Aaron Rodgers and Tyrod Taylor are two quarterbacks. Now, getting into the running backs, I got all four running backs making the roster. We got Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, and Izzy. Izzy did enough for me in training camp and in the preseason to warrant him to make this roster. I'm reminding everybody that Joe Douglas always keeps four running backs heading into a season, and I know that a lot of people heading into training camp was like, oh, the Jets drafted Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen. That means Izzy's the odd man out. He might get cut. I personally do not think so. I never thought so from the beginning. I just thought, okay, Izzy's demoted to running back 4, and he has to show out in order to really make this team. He did just that with a big game against the New York Giants. Izzy will be the running back number 4, and this running back room is going to be very fun to watch. 4 draft picks for the New York Jets. Breece Hall leading the way with 2 rookies in Allen and Davis, and the year 2 of Izzy. It's a young, fresh, dynamic running back room that is very versatile, and I cannot wait to see what they do. Now, getting into the tight end position, we got 3 tight ends making the roster: Tyler Conklin, Jeremy Ruckert, and Kenny Yeboah, which means the Jets will be cutting Zach Kuntz, which will probably be the easiest cut of all. Zach Kuntz did not look good at all. Since he came into the Jets building. I mean, really, no disrespect. Maybe he's on the practice squad and the Jets still believe that he can develop, but I have seen 0 positive signs of development from Zach Kuntz to this point. I know that Kenny Yeboah left the game with an injury. Hopefully he's going to be okay because he's the tight end number 3 for the Jets, and I think he's pretty solid at tight end number 3. So that's the 3 tight ends for the Jets: Conklin, Ruckert, and Yeboah. I have a lot of high expectations from Tyler Conklin and Ruckert to be those 2 guys. I think they'll both be utilized from Aaron Rodgers on the field, and if Yeboah is healthy, I think he's going to get on the field as well, even as tight end number 3 in the rotation for what the New York Jets like to do on the offensive side of the ball. Now, the wide receiver position, this one was interesting. So I have 6 receivers making the team: Garrett Wilson, of course, Mike Williams, Alan Lazard, Xavier Gibson, Malachi Corley. And my 6th receiver, I got Jason Brownlee. I know a lot of people were like, oh, but what about Brandon Smith in the preseason? He looked good. I'm not buying into that hype. He looked good in the preseason, but Jason Brownlee is entering year number 2. He's more polished. I know that Smith maybe had more highlight level plays in the preseason, but I look at what Jason Brownlee did in training camp with Tyrod Taylor. I saw the touchdown he scored in the week 1 of the preseason. I still think that Jason Brownlee is a more polished route runner and has more upside as a receiver than Brandon Smith. I think Smith can be a really good stash on the practice squad for sure, but I'm definitely going to roll with Jason Brownlee, and this does mean the Jets do cut Irvin Charles. I feel like Irvin Charles, I know that he's a special teams prowess type of guy, but I think the Jets have a lot of special teams depth around this team, like Eccles and JBC and Stiggers and Chaz Surratt and Zaire Barnes, which I just spoiled that I have making the team over Irv Charles. So yes, I do have the Jets cutting Irvin Charles, who's also injured throughout training camp, which is definitely a reason for that. Now, getting into the offensive line, this was an interesting one. We got the starting 5 offensive line, obviously making it: Tyron Smith, Simpson, Tippmann, AVT, and Moses. We got the backups of Olu. We got Wes Schweitzer, Carter Warren, Max Mitchell, and I do have Xavier Newman making the team. He did leave with an injury, and apparently it's not severe. So that's, I believe, 10 offensive linemen I have for the New York Jets making this team. We need depth, and I feel like the Jets' depth going into this season on the offensive line is the best we've ever seen, to be honest. I mean, especially when it comes to the starting five, and then we have a first-round pick off the bench with Olu as our swing. We have two promising offensive tackles still developing in Max Mitchell and Carter Warren. Wes Schweitzer can plug in at either guard position, and Xavier Newman is that center guard versatile piece off the bench. So that's this 10 offensive linemen I have making the team for the New York Jets. Now, the defensive line, this is where it really gets interesting. And by the way, I'm going into this without Hassan Reddick on the 53-man roster. I mean, he's not a Jet in my eyes. He's just not. He hasn't done anything. I don't know if the Jets are trading him or not. Don't ask me, okay? I'm sick of the Hassan Reddick situation. I'm going into this 53-man roster prediction with Hassan Reddick not even on the team. So I got Quinnen Williams, Javon Kinlaw, Solomon Thomas, of course, making this team with Lakey Fatu, the 4 defensive tackles. And then we got Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, Michael Clemens. We got Tack McKinley making the team. And we got my boy Leonard Taylor III making the team. And Braden McGregor. So Braden McGregor makes the roster. He's going to be the Hassan Reddick replacement. So if the Jets figure out a way to keep Hassan Reddick, he's going to replace McGregor on this roster, in my opinion. So I do have Braden McGregor and Leonard Taylor III and Tack McKinley make the team. The 3 guys who really stood out the most in the preseason finale. Eric Watts is a hard cut for the Jets, but you can't keep everybody, of course. But Leonard Taylor III is the guy that I'm really excited to watch for this Jets football team this upcoming season, man. I think that he plays Quinnen Williams' position. He's going to be Quinnen Williams' replacement in terms of when Quinnen's on the bench and when Quinnen's getting some, breathing room, because as you all know, the Jets like to run a deep defensive line rotation. So that's a total of 10 defensive linemen, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 10 defensive linemen. The New York Jets love to have their depth on the defensive line. So I'm keeping 10 offensive linemen and 10 defensive linemen in my prediction. Eric Watts is a cut. And if Hassan Reddick does figure out a way to stay with the Jets, I think the Jets will have to cut and move on for Braden McGregor and keep him on the practice squad. But as of right now, I have McGregor making this team. He looked really good as an undrafted free agent. Could he be the new Bryce Huff? The New York Jets brought in Bryce Huff in undrafted free agency. He developed into the star he is today. So that's my 10 defensive linemen. Tack McKinley is also going to be a piece that's going to help the replacement of Hassan Reddick. And we have Leonard Taylor, who looks like an absolute dog, who I think is going to be a really good player. Will McDonald. I know that Michael Clemens is a guy that some Jets fans are like, oh, just cut Clemens, bro. Clemens sucks. I mean, come on. I get it. He did not really look great in the offseason, but I think that this is Michael Clemens' last opportunity to prove his impact for this Jets defensive line. The linebackers, I got 5 linebackers for the Jets. C.J. Mosley, Quincy Williams, Jamie Sherwood, and I have Zaire Barnes and Chaz Surratt making this team. I think keeping Chaz Surratt's important from special teams and the depth. I think that he showed a lot in the preseason, and not to mention Zaire Barnes as well. I think that Barnes' development has been an absolute joy to watch. The linebacker position is just something fun. Every time you see Robert Saleh get his hands on a young linebacker, it's fun to watch them grow. We're seeing Jamie Sherwood make those steps. We saw Quincy Williams break out last year. The Jets linebacker core is really good, and I'm excited to see what they can do this upcoming season. The cornerback position, I got 6 corners: Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Michael Carter II, the 3 starters, and then we have Quantez Stiggers, JBC, and Brennan Eccles making this team as well. Eccles and Stiggers are going to be those core special teams players that's going to replace Irvin Charles, as well as Chaz Surratt and Zaire Barnes. That's why I was comfortable with sacrificing Irvin Charles on this roster, because I like the depth at special teams in terms of the gunners and punt coverage and kickoff coverage and all that stuff. Even though I do like Charles, I think the Jets still have a chance to keep him. I'm not ruling it out completely, but based off all the numbers, I kind of went more over some players over Charles, in my opinion. So I think the Jets have a really good depth at the cornerback position. You got Stiggers and JBC as your 2 outside guys, and then you have Eccles, who he could do both, play outside and line up in the slot if there's any injuries to Michael Carter II, which we're hopeful he'll be healthy by week number 1. The safety position, I got 4 safeties making the team: Tony Adams and Chuck Clark, the 2 starters, and then Ashton Davis and Isaiah Oliver, the 2 backups. And I think Ashton Davis deserves some recognition on this team, even in certain packages. Just because he's not going to be necessarily a starter, I do expect Ashton Davis to be on the field in certain packages, because in limited reps last year, the guy had many interceptions. So I love Ashton Davis. Isaiah Oliver, to be honest, I'm not really impressed with. I feel like he's okay. So in training camp and preseason, I'm not really wowed by Isaiah Oliver. He's a corner, and they turned him into a safety, so we'll see what he does off the bench. But I love Tony Adams. He's my breakout player on the Jets defense. And then Chuck Clark is that savvy veteran that Jets fans don't really know much about yet because of the injury he suffered last year in OTAs. And then last but not least, the special teams unit, Hennessy, Zerline, and Morstead, that completes the 53-man roster. So the big cuts that I have is Irvin Charles, Zach Kuntz, big cut, right? Eric Watts. I mean, it was hard to cut this down. I mean, Hassan Reddick is not on my 53-man roster again. And I had Xavier Newman also on this roster, even though he did have an injury. I was debating between Xavier Newman and Irvin Charles, and I'm like, I'd rather prioritize offensive line depth over a gunner on special teams personally. So that's really my thoughts, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments of your 53-man roster prediction. We shall see in the next few days of the official 53-man roster. But the players that I'm really holding out for the most to make this team is Leonard Taylor III. He needs to make this roster. The Jets have to figure out a way to squeeze him on this team. I don't care what they have to do. He has all the upside, and he will get claimed somewhere else. Izzy makes the team as the 4th running back. Jason Brownlee makes the team as the 6th wide receiver. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section, guys. Don't forget to hit the like button. Let's go, Jets. Football's right around the corner. I'll see you guys next time.